And I think so many of us are so caught up in our own lives that it might be hard to slow down, to slow down to that speed and to become a noticer.
Yeah, to slow down and become a noticer. Thank you, David, for saying that, because it is a challenge. And actually, so you could read a great book like, Toll's book on Now. He's sitting in a park bench in New York, Washington Square, sort of, unemployed and hanging out, and watching people rush by. And it just occurs to him that he doesn't need to do that. He can remain mostly in the now and doesn't have to be rushing from point A to point B. Well, that's good, because chronology can have a terrible effect on our quality of lives. We need to get out of it a little bit. Well, if you're going to spend time with a deeply forgetful person, they have already lost that sort of temporal glue between past and present and future. Although I do think there's a lot more of their continuing self-identity than meets the eye. And what caregivers can do is they can figure out how to bring that out of them through all kinds of devices, from music and dance to reading Robert Frost. You'd be shocked at how responsive people can be. But they still, they're living in large part in the moment. And so if you're going to spend any time with them, you have to step out of chronological time yourself. You have to leave the rush from point A to point B behind. So to be with them, you almost have to enter into that state of the now.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. They force us to slow down and to be more mindful. This is what mindfulness is about, right? Don't be rushing around, fretting, but just be attentive and mindful in the moment.
So it can be therapeutic for the caregiver to
potentially
develop the maturity to deal with this situation.
Yeah.
And to give the gift of slowing down and noticing.
Yeah. And to realize that, somebody can look pretty far gone, but for all you know, they've just gone down in their minds to the train station, and they've got 1 foot, to quote Woody Guthrie, on that train for glory. So they're ahead of us.
Yeah.
You can't see, in some respects, people with Alzheimer's are spiritual in a fascinating way. You have to recognize that people are never, quote unquote, gone, at least not in my opinion. And that's the dignity of it. If they were gone, then, you're doing caregiving and you feel like, well, okay, this is completely futile. But if the person there, if you notice, if you can allow them to reveal that continuity of identity, it's a lot easier to take care of them.
Okay, well, probably time for us to wind down a bit. I want to give you an opportunity to sell this book. Who needs it? Who could benefit from it?
Well, it's a book for everybody to rethink how we view deeply forgetful individuals. Because remember, we all have our moments, and in the future, we may have more than in the past. So everybody needs to rethink the way in which we tend to exclude and even demonize the deeply forgetful. Oh, they're useless eaters. They're life unworthy of life, said the Germans. They're caregiving is a waste of time. We need to rethink our inclusivity and our shared humanity. We need to rethink our hypercognitive values and how they exclude most people. In fact, they certainly exclude us all while we're asleep. But we need to be more inclusive and recognize that these are differently abled people. They're still people. They can still have moments of insight, artistic creativity, musical creativity. They can enjoy consciousness. They can enjoy palatial stimulation. So there's a lot still there, and it never goes away. So I would say that. And then for caregivers, this is a book that every caregiver hopefully will want to read because it's very practical in how to deal with some very pressing issues that most caregivers ask, sort of practical, ethical things of all kinds, treatment decisions, life organization decisions, how to get someone in the shower when they're recalcitrant, So, and also it's about communication. So there's a beautiful workshop at the end of the book by Jade Angelica, who's a worldwide expert on communicating with deeply forgetful people. How do you use language? You don't want to ask somebody in the morning, what would you like for breakfast? Because they'll freak out because you're not cueing them and they realize they can't remember the words. But if you say, would you like ham and eggs, or would you like Post's Toasties? Then you're cueing them with your language. And that can be empowering for them. So there's a whole section on how to use language skillfully to include rather than exclude, and to embrace rather than to create anxiety.